So naturally people have sort of wondered, well, can it help? Are these things linked? Can training on language sort of help you with music? Can training on music help you with language? Or in general, do these kinds of things develop together? And so a study from 2014 found that children who do well on one kind of test, so a grammatical test would be a test of, say, linguistic knowledge, and musical tests, they tended to be correlated. Children who did well on one kind tended to do well on the other, regardless of other things that you might think would matter, such as IQ, music experience, socioeconomic status. And they had some hypotheses that maybe what's in common is the ability to detect variations in timing, right? Because that's important both for musical stuff as well as for speech sounds. And again, looking at these linkings where you actually sort of focus on training in one kind of stimulus, like a music stimulus, and how much that transfers to language. There was a 2016 study that found out that babies who were trained on music, and that you can actually, we're not going to watch this video right here, but you can pull this up and kind of see the sort of training these little babies had in the musical condition. It turns out that they had stronger brain responses to disruptions, to anomalies in both music and speech stimuli in various parts of their brain compared with babies in the control group. So play sessions with music seem to improve children's ability, infants' ability really, to detect patterns in musical sounds and patterns in speech sounds, right? So, training with music, you sort of expect that they would get better at detecting, stuff with respect to music, but they also seem to improve with just detecting speech rhythms, right? So it seems to be some kind of transfer of this ability from music to language. And it turns out a different study found that 4 and 5-year-old Mandarin speaking children who received piano lessons for 6 months seem to have a significant advantage at discriminating certain sound-based features, so words that differ by one consonant, so big versus dig, right? The b and the duh are the consonantal difference, and so to discriminate between that, you have to pay attention to that sound. And it turns out that getting 6 months of piano lessons allows you to do that better than getting just 6 months of reading lessons, right? Some other sorts of in this case, language-based sort of training, but in fact it's the piano lessons that allow you to do that kind of sound-based discrimination a little bit better. And in fact, hearing impaired children who have cochlear implants, there's a recent study from 2019 that suggests that musical activities, particularly singing, right? So that involves language, but it's definitely musical, right? Develop these children's perception of the rhythm and pitch variation, sometimes called the prosody. Prosody is like the melody of a sound. So for example, it's a sort of thing that comes through even if your mouth is completely closed. If I read to you this sort of sentence right here with my mouth closed, it sounds something like this. Right? Like that's the prosody. It's the rhythm and the pitch variation, right? So musical activities like singing develop our cochlear implanted children's perception of this kind of information. And that's, again, sort of a transfer from a musical activity to a very languagey, non-musical activity. But a 2016 study sort of looked collectively at a lot of different sort of activities and found that there doesn't seem to be a lot of transfer from language training to non-linguistic sound stimuli like music, right? So training language doesn't seem to automatically improve your musical ability. But a more recent study from 2018 did find a particular linking, so pitch perception in 3 to 5-year-olds, right? And so they were looking at Chinese children who speak a tonal language. So this is where the actual sort of pitch variations, the rise and fall, is significant. So when I say the word cat versus cat, in English, those are the same word. They don't change the meaning just because I change the contour, the pitch, right? So cat, right? Like different contours. But in Chinese, in Mandarin in particular, that is something that will actually change the meaning of the word. It would be as different as saying cat versus gat, right? Like you really change what word form on the basis of the pitch of the tone. And so Chinese is a language where, that pitch perception is really important. And they found that Mandarin speaking children were more advanced at pitch processing, right? So tone languages that drive attention to pitch, right, as part of the language feature, right? Turns out that that's something that transfers over into non-linguistic context, and suggests that the language learning benefits, language learning can benefit music perception if you speak a language that makes use of the kinds of features that music relies on in this case.